from your local election headquarters. This is Big Country Politics on KTAB.
And welcome back to Big Country Politics here on KTAB. I'm Travis Reese here with the Director of Public Works for the City of Abilene, Greg McCaffrey. Greg, thank you so much for joining us here. Sure. We're talking about storm drainage today. So recent rains, I think there's obviously some flooding, right?
Right, brings that definitely high to the surface for individuals. Is anytime you get significant rain events, that's always a hot topic because immediately people feel that your storm network or system, is it working or is it not?
Right, but there is a solution kind of in the works right now. But first, I want to talk about how we got here. What in the past has led to, we talk about the streets. Those are the water channels.
Correct. In Abilene, the city uses the street system as part of, we call it the stormwater conveyance system. The city has 7 major drainage, as far as ditches, drains throughout the community that traverse as far as through the community that carry the good majority of our water. We use those drains to help facilitate getting rid of stormwater, as well as many other undefined open channels that the city through stormwater services routinely maintains those.
Right, but of course that does lead to the flooding. So that is affecting a lot of people and a lot of businesses and some potential places that businesses could move into. Right.
Right. Well, you're absolutely right. There's, Abilene has a number of areas that are within floodplain areas, and that's primarily because those areas were built up prior to the flood insurance rate study being conducted, and so now you've got a number of businesses, residential units that are within floodplain areas. In a proactive means, the city of Abilene several years ago adopted a stormwater rate to be able to address on a continuous basis, I want to call it the operation and maintenance of many of these open channels. And so that's what's been undertaken over the last several years.
And that's on our water. That's on our water bill, right?
So you see that on your water bill, and the good majority of those dollars that are collected through that rate is used for the city's operation and maintenance of maintaining open channels that are part of the overall stormwater system, as well as various activities and requirements that are placed on the city through our federal stormwater permit.
All right, so last November, the Abilene City Council kind of took some action. They have formally accepted a master plan for storm water drainage. Is that right?
Correct. So a couple of years ago, the council authorized the expenditures of funds within the stormwater fund to develop a master stormwater drainage management plan. What's identified within that plan is they looked at how does the system function today and what are priority or problem-prone areas, and they used a stakeholder group to help work through and identify these, and they're all part of that plan. The good majority of that plan is capital improvement items that have been identified. There's a number of projects. They all have a cost attributed to them, and they also have some other attributes, be it land acquisition or what have you, that would be associated to those. So the next step with that plan is to make that plan become a reality. There were 3 scenarios that were presented back in October to the council.
And all these 3 scenarios deal with time and, of course, money, right?
Time and money and rates, okay? That's generally one option to be able to fund those. The other, there's bonding as far as opportunities. There's some federal dollars that are out there that are unfortunately very competitive.
But we're going to try.
Okay? And people are going to hear this, I think, more and more is, one of the biggest problem areas is the Elm Creek drainage basin, and there's a project that is of a significant cost that has been identified in that master plan of a rediversion as far as of that drain in order to relieve some pressure, the pressure being the volume of water that is trying to get down that existing drain as it is right now. And so the intent of staff in the near future here, because we are in our budget cycle right now for 2020, is to come back to City Council with, we're going to call it a hybrid or modified recommendation. We did sort of gain their pulse back in the City Council retreat in February of this year. And that was basically a follow-up really of the presentation that they saw in October of last year.
So the City Council has acknowledged, obviously, that this is a problem and something that they want to work toward to fix. So now you in your office, you guys are working toward how do we actually get there? Is that kind of right?
Correct. So what we need to do is really finalize, I'm going to call it a business plan that will really outline how can we best try to tackle this problem. In a perfect world, yes, you'd pass on a significant rate increase. We know that's not going to be acceptable, but we think that there is some room and opportunity to come in with a modified, we call it scenario, from the ones that we originally presented to them. We know that there is one large project, we call it the gorilla in the cage, that we're going to keep sight of that, but maybe what we need to do is pare that out of the scenarios right now because of its federal funding nature need, because that's really what we feel is going to have to take place for that project, and maybe focus in on a number of the other projects that were identified as priorities and see if at least we can start to move forward in implementing some of these CIP portions of that master plan.
And Greg, before we get a break, I want to talk about the Elm Creek diversion. So Elm Creek, obviously, everyone knows it. When you say diversion, what does that actually mean? Does that mean we're going to reverse it?
So no, what we'd be looking at doing is before before the water flows into, I want to call it the restrictive areas, what you do is you'd basically be intercepting that flow and rediverting it with an engineered channel, potentially an engineered basin that would temporarily hold some of that water back, and then you'd basically redivert that water back into the channel, more so downstream. So what you're doing is you're basically avoiding, I want to call it the restrictive areas of that Elm Creek drain. And unfortunately, that restrictive area that's of the Elm Creek drain is heavily built up residentially wise, and people see that I call it the flooding or the increased water that occurs because of the volume that is trying to get through within that area, and it just doesn't have the cross-sectional area for the capacity to get that amount of volume of water through.
Who would have thought Abilene, Texas, we'd be talking about flooding problems, really. I mean, I guess it's not a unique problem, but, Abilene, Texas, you think we don't get a lot of rain, but it is a problem.
Right. So, I mean, unfortunately, when the rain does come, it comes as far as in significant volumes in a very short time frame, and so you're always trying to best manage that, the removal of that water, and you surely want to try to take advantage of the resources, natural resources that you have, and that's what Abilene has chosen to do, is rather than having a number of engineered systems, be it significant large enclosed underground pipes or large regional constructed detention facilities, they've tried to take advantage of the existing open drainage system, and then they've also tried to manage those through, be it selective mowing, selective removal as far as vegetative growth along those channels to allow I guess I want to call it the optimal amount of water to be able to drain through those drainage systems, and it works very good to a point, unless you have a number of storms that are really back to back that really inundate those drains, and they're only each of them is only designed to accommodate a certain amount of flow, and once you start to exceed that, that's when the water backs up, and you start to see that incremental flooding as far as within the park areas, within residential areas, and even some commercial areas, unfortunately.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that information. And when we come back, we're going to be talking the bottom line. So we're talking about the master drainage plan. How do we pay for it? That's next, right here on Big Country Politics.